bad picture. Hopefully next week we'll pull everybody out of that really bad thing. Let's see if we can get this thing to work here. Climate change, why we need to pay attention. Once again, I feel somewhat obligated, having been a member of the Union of Concerned Scientists for about almost 35, 40 years. We're speaking out because we're not using science to make our decisions. First of all, climate is the average over many years of weather. It doesn't go like this, it goes like this. But ultimately, over the last 100 years, we have increased our temperatures immensely. Old high school formula, photosynthesis, takes sunlight, takes trees. We take carbon dioxide, the tree does, out of the atmosphere, add some water to this, and a little chlorophyll and other magic that takes place in the leaf. Just change it into sugar or starch or wood. Animals, herbivores, eat this. We may eat the animal, but ultimately we depend on sunlight for our source of energy. The tree also gives off oxygen when it does this, so it provides for us, so we get energy from the tree, which is useful. We're the reverse, respiration. People, animals, fish, birds, anything that is in the animal category. Once again, working backwards, we need some magic cycle like the Krebs cycle or something else to keep us so we can break down this stuff. We take the quote sugar or whatever it is in the plant that we're eating, and we can change that into energy with help of oxygen, also provided by the tree. Energy we need. What we give off is water in the form of the urine or in the sweat, and carbon dioxide. Now the nice thing is there's a balance or a symbiotic relationship. Trees are working for us, we're working for the trees. But lately we've gotten out of whack. Sunlight, we need it for the energy. We have oceans. Temperature is moderate, so I'm sure you kind of make it work around here. Okay. Clouds form, wind comes up, blows the clouds inward, comes down as rain or snow, and it collects. All is well. We have rivers that take it to the ocean. Okay. And what most people know, we have underground water sources that we call aquifers that take about 80% of the water back to the ocean for us. It has to filter down to get to those aquifers. Well, in the beginning, there were lots of plants and lots of animals. Okay, no real problems, looking good. Birch tree is providing our oxygen for us. We are taking in the oxygen, we and the other animals. We're giving off CO2. The nice thing of the tree, it's using the CO2 to take care of the atmosphere and to make food for us. Nice relationship. Then we come along, people, more people. We invent fire, we light fire. It's hot, helps us use our food so that we can then make it for more energy, better nutrition. And we also move north out of the equator and south, and we need heat to keep us warm. Once again, more fire. We build houses. We take in oxygen, we get off CO2. The house, the fire inside of it for cooking or for heating, gives off oxygen, gives off carbon dioxide, takes in oxygen. We start cutting down trees because we need to plant more food because we have more people, more food, more trees down. Ultimately, we reach today. Things have changed some. First of all, we have our same old number of people, but there's lots of us. In my lifespan, we've gone from about 3.1 billion people to about 7.7 billion people. Lots of us. And the temperature is starting to rise. More evaporation, more rainfall, less snow because it's warmer, it doesn't last as long, it doesn't fill up. Rivers are coming down, but now guess what? Colorado River, an example, doesn't even make it to the ocean because so many people are taking from it for agriculture, for water, for food, etc. Same with the aquifers. We're sucking them dry. We don't have time to refill. We have to dig deeper. So we invent trains. We grow the food someplace else, bring it to the big cities. We need that to transport. We also invent cars. We love cars, okay? We need to make roads to build the cars, to make the cars around, cutting down more trees, setting the aesthetic balance. Factories to make the cars, to make the trains. More trees, but guess what? There's fewer of them. They're not taking in as much oxygen and giving off absorbing the CO2 to be used by us. More plants, more trees, we invent fire. In fact, is now here the situation, we have fires around us every summer. They're getting worse because we have more grasses growing, they dry out earlier, lightning strikes with more storms, more issues. More trees, once again, they're blocked because they're not functioning like they used to. They can't keep up with the CO2 use. More roads, more people. We use the roads to transport goods again. By the way, I should remind you that we pay for the roads for the transportation of the trucks. We pay indirectly for the rail tracks that are down. More houses, more buildings to build the houses. Airplanes come along. They are very, very bad producers. Helicopters, once again, put out a lot of pollution. More rain. The oceans are rising. More flooding. Things are out of balance. These trees that used to take in lots of CO2, they're still taking it in, but there's not many of them. The oceans used to act as a buffer. They would absorb the CO2 and would have, the acid is now changing that forms carbonic acid. Acid is changing in the ocean, so now fish are dying, there's a hard time, the coral reefs are dying, etc. Once again, temperature. Now we can't see the CO2, but I put it up here as a light cloud just to remind us what's happening, how much CO2 we're putting out, and it's not being able to be cleansed from the atmosphere. Temperature's going up, and what's happening, the CO2 is a reflector. It absorbs and reflects the heat back down, so we're getting hotter. We have to realize that climate change is real, and we're in a crisis. I'll leave it at that. Next week, better news.
Good morning, everybody. Like Jessica mentioned, my name is Laurel Nelson. I work for Combined Communications. I am a marketing consultant there. What that means is that I have the really exciting job of working one-on-one with every client that you hear on the radio, and even those that you don't hear on the radio. And I work with them on finding basically what is best for them to get across the air, to get into the most important brains that would be applicable to their business. I will say, as I've won some most outgoing person awards, I still get a little nervous in front of people, which leads me to talk a little bit fast. I naturally talk really fast, so if I go too fast, just throw your hand up, say, Laurel, please repeat that. Laurel, please slow down. Just scream at me, I'll slow down. Fun fact, that is my beautiful niece and nephew, not my children. Pretty sure they're gonna grow up to be significantly smarter than I will ever be, but they're adorable, so I thought I'd put them there. So, kind of jumping into it. Like Jessica said, I work for Combined. I love it there. We do a lot of amazing things. If you don't know, Chuck Chackle is our owner. Sorry, my screen went black there for a second. He is huge in the media world. He started a lot of marketing all over Oregon. He actually started in Eugene with a few radio stations there and started the Oregon Sports Network. If you don't know what that is now the #1 network for all Oregon Ducks athletics. He is an alumni. They are on ESPN. They're all over the radio. Go Ducks. And literally less than a year after he started that, he started Combined Communications. We have been around for 31 years here in Central Oregon, and he started first by buying KBND, which is an AM/FM news talk radio station that I'll talk about a little bit more farther on. Also, just another fun fact about our history, we used to own Central Oregon Magazine. We started it, had it for many years. We sold it about 5 years ago. Chuck and who we call our chief now, our GM, decided that it was time to start getting on the digital train and stick with our radio because that's what we do best. So, moving forward. So today, like she said, I'm here to talk to you guys a little bit about marketing, and specifically what I want to talk about is marketing for nonprofits. I think it's a huge, amazing thing for nonprofits to do. Even there are so many ways to even do it for free if it's needed. So moving forward. So part of the reason I work for Combined Communications and part of the reason I accepted it is because we do so much with nonprofits. Both my parents are Christian missionaries, so I was grown up in a nonprofit household, which means they volunteer 100% of their hours of their life to a nonprofit. So nonprofits are a big, big heart of mine. At Combined, we work with over 50 nonprofits every year on an annual basis. These are repeat nonprofits that come to us every single year for work. And we give over $500,000, so about $500,000 worth of media in exchange when we work with these nonprofits. What that means is a lot of in-kind partnerships, a lot of third-party partnerships where we can find sponsors for events for that company, those type of things. I'll go into that further. Our biggest one that we do is a match for match. So if you guys do know any nonprofits, or if you guys want to do any type of marketing, we do a match for match, which basically works as you buy 500 commercial spots, we're going to give you 500 commercial spots for free, because we want to help our nonprofits in the community. Plus, we are huge on it, if you can't tell. So, Combined Communications, as a whole, has two key products that we do. Chuck also owns a TV station, but at Combined we don't do a lot with it yet. It tends to be more of a valley station, and we don't do a lot with it. However, our key things that we do is radio and digital. With time moving forward, and like I said, millennials being connected to this and that all the time, we are moving into the digital frame as well. We've been doing it for a couple years now, and it's only growing. So we're excited to work on digital, and I actually have a lot of clients that I strongly push towards digital. I think it's a lot of fun. So just to talk about that a little bit. So our main thing that we do is radio. We have 5 stations, and I'll go into depth on each one of them. But how radio works is, and what we always say is that first you got to find that target market of yours. Huge thing in any business, if you've ever owned a business, worked in advertising at all, or ever advertised for a previous business, your target market is the main thing that you're aiming for. Who do you want to hear your message? Because if the wrong person's hearing your message, it's not going to be applicable to anything, right? You know, I am not somebody who's going to go out and buy fishing products, because I simply don't fish unless I'm with my dad, and he brings everything with him, right? So I don't need to hear a fishing commercial. This is kind of a breakdown, and probably a little harder to see, and it's not all that important, but we have tons of data that breaks down each one of our stations to find that target market, and that's my main job when I sit down with a client for my very first meeting, figuring out who really makes them the most money, or who do they really want to get a public service announcement to. Fun fact for Combined Communications, we reach about 77,000 people a week through our radio stations. And those people spend on average $1.5 billion a year on just retail and restaurant goods. So we reach a lot of people, we spend a lot of money. So moving forward, just to start going through some of the radio stations. On each one of these slides, I'll show a few of the nonprofit organizations that this station specifically markets. So our first station up is KBND. That is our very first station that we ever owned. News Talk, a lot of national affiliates. So you have Rush Limbaugh and Lars Larson that talk on this show every single day. Some of you guys might know them. Pretty conservative talkers. But we also, and target market-wise, this station is going to hit people in the age range of 35 to 64. Generally, what we say are these are retired or business owners that are listening to this station. It's kind of like a local OPB with a little more politics type thing. We have local news reporters here in Central Oregon, but we also do report on news nationally through other news channels and such. We also do sports, so all of the Ducks games, all of the Blazers games, all that fun stuff. This station specifically works with Healthcare Scholarship Foundation, which I'll talk about kind of some of the campaigns they've done a little bit later on. Companies like, or nonprofits like Stroke Awareness Oregon, because that's closer to their age range for their target market. And Sisters Quilt Show, actually, this was the very first year that they did radio, and they saw such great response. It was really cool. Actually, one of my really good friends at the company got them on the air, and they said that they saw more Central Oregonians than they've ever seen at the quilt show, because generally it's a lot of outsiders, so it's really cool to see the response for that. Going on to the next one. So our next station here, some of you guys might know, this is the #1 station in all of Central Oregon. KVND, the previous one, is always in the top 3 because it's a news talk. Everybody likes it. Classic rock, alternative rock is our second one up. It is, like I said, the #1 station. We bought it from Warm Springs Tribe about 23 years ago, and we lucked out by having the same DJ from the Warm Springs morning DJ come over, and he found a friend, and we've had the exact same live DJs for 23 years now. So they have a following called the Twinsters. They're generally men aged about 25 to 54. These are the guys who really like the good old days. I mean, every time I see somebody wearing a shirt like this, it's like a shirt from the station. It's a 20-year anniversary shirt, and they'll talk about how they have 5-year anniversary shirts, and they'll go on forever. Example of a target market for the station along with that would be like my boyfriend works at a lumber mill, and they have this playing 24/7. That's just how it goes. This station, because of the DJs that we have and because of the music that they play, is strongly veteran-based. Almost all the nonprofits that they work with are veteran-based or youth-based. Those are kind of their two things that they really like to highlight. So as you can see, they work with Ronald McDonald, Bethlehem Inn, or the Central Oregon Veterans Outreach. And like I said, we work with 50 nonprofits, so they work with much more than just these 3. Speed it along onto the next one. So, do any of you guys listen to country music at all? We got one in the back, 2, okay. This is my favorite station that we have, but that's because I fall in that great target market of ages 21 to 49. This station, surprisingly, is actually very strong female base that listen to it. It is a lot of, moms driving their kids around. However, country in the nation is the #1 genre of music.
What's the number?
Sorry?
What is this channel?
The channel is 99.7, The Bull. Yeah. Sorry. But this station in general, because it is the #1 genre in the country, we also have Big D and Bubba, which is a national affiliate for our morning show. They're one of the top 5 in the entire nation for morning shows. So the station, for target market-wise, does really well with, again, veterans. It also does really well with any animal community, any type of, like, I'm talking with Brightside right now. I'm hoping to get them on here just because this station does really well with that. They also do a lot with cancer awareness. They have, some of our DJs have some previous history with cancer, so we like to have some cancer nonprofits on there as well. And this station is generally in the top 5 of all radio stations in Central Oregon. So all of our stations are in the top 10, which is really nice to be able to say because we work really hard to make sure that we're in that, putting the best program that we can put on.
Just curious, how many stations are in Central Oregon?
There is over 20 stations. And we have 3 in the top 5 for the last 6 months in a row. And actually for many years, we've always had KB&D, The Bull, and the Classic Rock station are always in the top 5. And then we have our last 2 here that are usually in the top 10 area. So one of the last 2 here, this is one of my favorite stations. It's an adult alternative station. This is stuff like Coldplay, The Shins, Dave Matthews Band. We call this our Pandora station. There's less commercials on this, and most of the commercials are either nonprofit or big ticket item commercials, because the key listener base for this is females that are kind of in that age range of a little higher up than 18 to 44, but more like 30 to 44. It's a lot of people that live on the west side in Bend and drive Suburbans. For example, on the station, when we do giveaways, we won't do a giveaway that's valued lower, simply because those people are going to spend just as much in gas money to drive over to the north side of Bend to get that giveaway in their large Suburban as they would just to buy it themselves. So it is a really fun station. It does this station probably does one of the most in nonprofit fundraising because the station has pretty high income people listening to it. For example, I don't know if you guys have ever been to Cork and Barrel. It's a large event that's for raising money for kids. Tickets to it are like almost $200 for a night of dinner and auctioning and such. And it just happened 2 weekends ago. But that's a huge one on this station. And Discover Your Forest has Stars Over Newberry, which is coming up, and that's also a fundraiser to raise money for kids and such. So it's a great station. Most of our office listens to it, in all honesty. More than any other station. Very last one here is perfect way to show target market of me. This is people that are 18 to 50-ish. Generally, it's a lot of moms or kids that want to listen to it, and then the parents end up having to listen to it. This one is 107.7 The Beat. It is a top 40s hit. So you got your Taylor Swifts, you got your Kanye, you got all the fun Beyonce stuff. Basically anything that's going to get you a little bit moving in your car, it's probably going to be on this station. And this station, part of the reason I do not have nonprofits up there is because they do a ton of nonprofits. They also do a ton of giveaways in digital, more than any of our other stations. Because the listener basis of this is more interested in digital. So for example, I put their Instagram up there. It's basically their way of sharing and going out in the community and reaching out to people. They do, like I said, tons of giveaways. So nonprofit-wise, they do giveaways for those big events like Cork and Barrel and such. Profit-wise, the very bottom pictures, it's kind of small, but it's a guy playing laser tag. That is one of my clients. He is amazing, but we're giving away birthday parties to a laser tag place right now. So they get a lot of feedback through digital and posting that they're doing a giveaway, which is a lot of fun. Outside of radio, like I said, combined, we have two different ways of marketing ourselves and marketing our clients is digital campaigning. So personally at Combined, we have web pages for each one of our stations. We have Facebooks, all the different social media outlets that you could use. But the fun part, I think a lot of people say radio isn't dying, or radio is dying. However, it's not. Recent surveys show that 90% of the nation listens to radio at least 5 hours a week. And that's like bare minimum type thing. But however, we do realize that digital is coming into the world. For example, I work at a radio company and I still listen to podcasts most of my workday. If you don't know what a podcast is, it's generally 2 people to 5 people sitting in a studio, and they record hour-long to 2-hour-long episodes talking about certain subjects. For example, there are entire 120 episode things talking about global climate change. And I listen to all the crime ones, so each episode goes over each crime you could ever imagine. But for us, KB&D specifically, we have something called Experts on the 20. On radio, what that means is that on, I think it's 7:20 in the morning and one other 20 part, we have experts come in and talk for 5 minutes about what they're an expert in. Currently, I have a lawyer that talks about estate planning for 5 minutes and has seen great results for that. But all of those are turned into a podcast. So we have, I think, 6 different podcasts that have basically 6 different podcast groups that talk about different things. For example, every Saturday I have a real estate agent that talks for an hour, and he has that talks for an hour on the radio and then records it as a podcast episode so that people can go back and listen to it later if they missed it on the radio. Does that make sense? Cool. Along with that, Combined Communications has a giant auction once a year, basically a Cyber Monday auction where we sell everything that we've traded for the year. Being in radio, being in marketing, being in any type of advertisement, we do a ton of trade. What that means is that if you have something, let's say I need car work on my car, so I'm going to go to a car dealer and I'm going to ask them to do trade with me. What that means is that I'm going to give them $3,000 of advertising for $3,000 worth of work. So our auction basically is certificate forms of that. A lot of alcohol. We get a lot of alcohol certificates. We get a lot of fun things like helicopter rides that we sell on auction, and a lot of just kind of funky stuff like CVT tents. We get those type of things. That is open to the public auction, which is a way for businesses and nonprofits, if they have anything to give away, to get their name out there for free for us. That's my favorite thing to do for free for clients. I have a lot of people that are in the service industry and willing to trade that because it's a lot cheaper than paying cash for advertising. So outside of that, we work with Simplify. what Simplified does is it owns about, well, it has the ability to access 80% of the World Wide Web's inventory for advertising space. So I'm sure you guys have all had it happen where you're talking with somebody about something, or you Google search something once and then all of a sudden it's on every website you've ever seen. Like, I'm a tennis person, I shopped for a tennis racket, and all of a sudden I literally had tennis racket ads on every single website I went to. So at Combined, we are able to do that because we work with Simplify. We can basically buy up any inventory space that is on the World Wide Web and be able to place an ad for a company. What that means for nonprofits is actually huge. We have a few nonprofits that are doing it. For example, Hospice of Redmond actually is just about to start doing a digital campaign, which basically they click on that banner and it'll go through to their website and be able to tell them all about that. So keep your websites updated and interesting if you want to do digital, because it's worth it. So, very last thing that I have here is just kind of talking about 3 big nonprofits that I've worked with or my affiliates have worked with that have seen great results in just this year or have come back annually. Very first one is Hospice of Redmond, which I just talked about. They have actually only been on air since early 2018, so less than 2 years. And they've already decided to increase their budget by 5 times the original amount because they have seen such a great increase in numbers for volunteers. One of their commercial spots is all about getting volunteers out there. And then also a great increase in just awareness of what they do, because they are a nonprofit. Even though they have 20 staff, they still do a lot of volunteer hours for a lot of stuff. And they're actually really awesome. Next one up I have is Health Scholarships Foundations. This is one of my favorite because they're my client and I love them and they're great. They raise money for children who are looking to get into the healthcare industry. And they give scholarships to those children to go into college to study for the healthcare industry. Once a year they have a giant event. They actually have been on air or doing this event for about 10 years. However, they've only been on the radio for about 5 years of that. Results-wise for being on radio has actually been really awesome. They have Ben Surgery, basically pays for their radio campaign and then we match it. And actually we give them a lot of other free stuff. But in their first 5 years, they raised $137,000 to give away to kids. And then in the next 5 years, they've actually raised, so last year alone, she said that they raised $60,000 for their one event. So that wasn't including year-round campaigning and stuff. So they pretty much doubled their intake by doing a little bit of marketing and a little bit bigger event and stuff. So it's really cool. Very last one is actually our nonprofit that Combined has. We recently actually separated it from Combined and gave it to Chuck's son to run, but Combined and Chuck, our owner, was the one who started it. It's the Ghost Tree Invitational. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it, but it's a full weekend of golfing and then a huge after party on the next day. This has raised, so it's been around for this will be our 14th year of Ghost Tree, and we have raised over $1 million just to give to McDonald's, Ronald McDonald House. However, 2 years ago, we did decide that we're going to start spreading it around to more charities because we used to just send checks to them, and we decided we should spread it out. So now it's Boys and Girls Club, Ronald McDonald, and one other one that I can't remember. But you never know. I could talk to Chuck. But this one's just a fun one because we have raised so much money, and it's literally started by a radio company, and it just shows like how well the marketing has worked for it. And all we do is radio for it, and we have done great. So from there on, that's kind of all I have. Questions?
We are having this Oktoberfest activity coming up.
Yeah.
What could the radio station do for us to get people down there?
Yeah, I mean, you have a few options. So we have a few things that I'd be happy to do for free. What we do first is put you guys on our event calendar, and then I give all the DJs the option to take somebody on to talk to them on the air about your event and those type of things. From there, you can also do an actual campaign. That's that one for $1 match. So if you guys gave us, $1,000, I'd give you $2,000 worth of marketing. And there's some other kind of talk to my boss type of things that we can do, just because I have to have some types of approval. But generally for like events, we do a ton of event marketing for nonprofits. What we recommend, depending on the budget, is 2 to 3 weeks of marketing for it, which can range in cost all completely on what you guys want to do. I will say I've done marketing for a few years now and other things other than radio, and radio is actually like the cheapest thing out there, and you reach a large number. But for that event specifically, it'd be really fun. We'd create a pretty active commercial for it and probably do about a 2-week campaign. Central Oregonians in general don't book out our lives very far other than like actual trips. So we've discovered that if you do any more than 3 weeks, it's pointless because people will forget about it, or that's too far out, they're not going to sign up, put it on their calendar type thing. So.
Is that on all the radio stations, or?
So like I said, we want to find your guys' key target market for something like that. I'm guessing, I mean, I don't know a ton about the event, but I'd probably put you on some of the younger ones, because if it's a brew fest and there's beer, let's hit those younger people that are willing to spend quite a bit of money on beer. But it all depends on what you guys are wanting to do and what the cost is. Each station has some different costs because each station has, you know, its own setting. The number 1 station in the market is going to be a little more expensive than the number 10 station in the market type thing.
So my question, you talk about hospice and they're adding more volume to their dollars spent. How are you determining the return on investment when it comes to marketing on the radio?
Yeah, so radio is kind of funny because there's ways to do analyticals. Twice a year we have a giant company do a survey that basically sends out giant packets all about marketing to people, and people record everything that they listen to on the radio. Specifically for hospice, they are not my client, but I do know that when I talked to the person that reps them, she said that their volunteer numbers have gone up dramatically, and when they ask people where they heard about it and stuff, they've been saying radio, and that's usually what it is in radio, is that people, you know, you ask them and they say, oh, I heard it on the radio station. The nice thing about radio is that generally people are pretty designated to their 1 or 2 stations, so they're going to hear that commercial quite a bit, which is nice. Did that answer your question? Mostly, kind of.
I know the answer, right?
Yeah.
I have a client who's a nonprofit drug rehabilitation company. Now, they don't have a lot of money, but how eligible would they be for pro bono work from you?
I mean, each one that comes up is eligible. We just sit down and talk. And a lot of radio and a lot of combined communications is you give us an idea, or the marketing rep and the client sit down and come up with an idea, and we do it. What my boss says literally every single day is we will try something once. We don't mind failing. So if it means we give away a bunch of money, I mean, we have already given away $500,000 a year. So we're happy to work with nonprofits. Yeah.
Hi, I'm curious. So when you said that you find sponsors to purchase the advertising for a nonprofit, do you, like in that case, Ben Surgery, do you advertise like that particular spot, or that advertising is sponsored by Ben Surgery?
Yeah, so on that last slide, if we had more time, it had the commercial spots. So if you start listening to commercials and hearing events, at the very end of each commercial will say, this event sponsored by. And it'll list off some sponsors. So for Ben Surgery, actually, Ben Surgery is the main contributor. And then what that specific event does is that they sell different sponsorship packages. And depending on what package they buy, they'll get a radio mention. So there are like one commercial that will run a lot more because that specific sponsor paid more to have their name mentioned more. So that's how they kind of pay for it, is that, and then we match that, and we actually give them quite a bit more than that. But that's how they've done it through the years. And Ben Surgery is also a Ghost Tree Foundation person or company. So we kind of have, we call them in-kind partnerships, where we want to do our best to help them succeed the most that they can. So, does that answer it?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Alright, I assume that you'll be hanging around a little bit if they
Yeah.
have questions, okay?
Cool. Thank you guys.